So, Emma Raducanu has just started her bid to win Wimbledon. A year ago, at just 18 years old, Raducanu burst onto the global sports scene after reaching the last 16 of Wimbledon, whilst being ranked number 338 in the world. While she unfortunately had to retire from that match with breathing difficulties, her out-of-nowhere performances captivated the British public, and she became tennis's new golden girl. And only a couple of months later, she remarkably won the 2021 US Open. This was insane. An 18-year-old who a couple of months prior was just finishing her A-levels somehow managed to win a Grand Slam at the second time of asking. The ensuing obsession with her in both mainstream and sports media created a global icon. From that victory, she scooped $2.5 million, and since then has partnered with some of the world's most iconic brands, earning her around another $10 million. But since that US Open win, things haven't really gone to plan. A series of injuries and many lackluster performances has meant that Raducanu has failed to win more than 3 matches in a row. And in 2022, she actually has more losses to her name than victories. It leaves many asking the question of whether Emma Raducanu's unexpected success came too soon. Has it created too much pressure for this teenager who was a nobody a year ago? Let's find out. Emma Raducanu has had one of the biggest breaks out in sports history. And one of the issues with that is that it draws eyeballs. Lots of them. For other young sporting stars, there's often a far more gradual breakout. There might be a few standout performances that slowly get better over time. Think back to someone like Wayne Rooney. He burst onto the scene with an insane goal on his Everton debut against Arsenal at just 16. Yet despite this, his progress into a global star didn't really come until he put in some world-class performances a couple of years later at Euro 2004. The same can be said for someone even like Tiger Woods. He was known to be the next big thing in golf, but this was a gradual movement until he finally turned pro at 21. His dominance developed early on in junior competitions and then during college level before he finally made the switch to the professional scene. In essence, there was time for the expectations to grow for these global stars. But for Raducanu, she literally exploded out of nowhere. This time last year, even a lot of proper tennis fans would have never heard of her. And for her to then win a Grand Slam, that creates a lot of pressure. There's been no gradual pathway to follow in order to get ready for that. And despite her having an incredibly mature head on her young shoulders, any teenager is going to find that overwhelming. And the problem is this insatiable desire the media now has for her to excel means that every lost match is intensely scrutinised. People forget that she is still an inexperienced pro, and they don't give her the breathing space she needs to grow into a complete tennis player. And the risk is that this may stifle her progress or cause early burnout, and we definitely saw this with someone like Wayne Rooney. Despite his more gradual come up, his breakout at Euro 2004 did create this overwhelming pressure on him as a teenager to become the country's saving grace, the golden boy who would lead the country to glory. But we saw in his Amazon Prime documentary that this pressure resulted in him being overworked too young and too soon, meaning that for much of his career he was playing with and through injuries and constantly under intense media scrutiny for not continually getting better and better. He was an athlete who, despite an exceptional career, was left feeling as though he didn't fulfill his potential. And I fear the media and the weight of expectations that are being placed on Raducanu could lead to the same fate. And the other thing that threatens her career is the added baggage that has come with her early stardom. Other than Tiger Woods, I can't think of an athlete who has signed so many high-level endorsement deals at such a young age. And while Raducanu's team has said she'll never miss a practice or tournament for these other commitments, they are at the end of the day other commitments. In other words, pulls on her time, something that she only has a finite amount of each day. And given her age, rest and recovery is paramount to grow and develop into the best player she can possibly be. She isn't someone that strikes us as egotistical or all about the money, but any 19-year-old who has already earned almost close to $15 million, that's going to impact them and also others in their sport. Raducanu is probably realising that her opponents are now upping their game against her. There's an inevitable jealousy and envy from those who are ahead of Raducanu in their respective careers, who've not got near that level of financial reward, despite the years of graft that they've put in. So with every major contract Raducanu signs, there's another reason her opponents are going to want to kick her ass out on the court. There's a risk of her becoming a different version of someone like Anna Kournikova, who burst onto the professional scene at 15, and after reaching the semi-final of Wimbledon at 16, became tennis's sweetheart. She signed infinite lucrative deals, making her the highest earning sportswoman in the world, and her value ended up coming more from her marketability. And with that came immense pressure and a forever expectant media and list of sponsors demanding success. And this intense scrutiny arguably got to her during big moments, meaning she never got further than that semi-final in a singles Grand Slam. and unfortunately, along with injuries, she had to retire at the age of just 22. Many other athletes gradually take on more sponsors as their reputation grows. Even someone like Tiger Woods, who at the age of 21 signed a number of lucrative deals with major companies, knew that this was expected. This was planned and prepared for a number of years until he finally turned pro. But for Raducanu, the unexpected success she had last summer has possibly led to a smash and grab of her team taking what they can get whilst riding the wave of her success. So what's the whole point here? Well, being British myself, I want to see Emma Raducanu have an incredibly successful career, one marked by longevity and tons more Grand Slam titles. But for that to happen, you have to feel more protection is needed of her. The media needs to back up, and her team need to put tennis 100% first all the time. And a great example of what this could look like is current young English footballer Phil Foden. He's been gradually integrated into the Manchester City and England teams over the past 3 years. He looks like he could become the best player in the world, but he's been protected by his coach Pep Guardiola, and the media seem to have learned their lesson about hindering the career of a generational talent like they did with Wayne Rooney. I know that protection is more difficult with individual sports like tennis, but at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you're not damaging teenage talent. So let's all want Emma Raducanu to succeed, but let's just back off a bit. She is still a kid, and we should just let her play like one.